The Sicilian Mafia is no doubt a notorious criminal organization. They're also well known as the Cosa Nostra cartel. While the organization still remains in Sicily, it has been here since the early 19th century. Recently, dozens of Sicilian mafiosi, along with their white-collar accomplices, were sent to jail in a landmark trial which showed how the mob defrauded the EU with millions of euros. And around the second half of the 20th century, the cartel gang would turn international. Also, the term mafia is generic because it could refer to any criminal organization. This is why the Sicilians have gotten the term Cosa Nostra to represent the Sicilian mafia here in Sicily, and also anywhere else this organization might be present worldwide. Now, the year-and-a-half-long maxi trial of up to 101 defendants in a bunker-style courthouse set in Messina, Sicily, came to an end recently, with around 91 of the accused and sentenced to 66 years in prison for crimes including fraud, extortion, false statements, creating fake companies for illegal gain, as well as drug peddling. 2 gang leaders will go to jail for 30 years and up to 23 years. The final verdicts and sentences took more than an hour to read out. Moreover, the trial out for the first time a system of scams which drained around €5 million in the EU agricultural funds into the coffers of 2 mob gangs based in the Nebrodi Mountains, along with their associates, including politicians, accountants, and also government employees. Prosecutor Maurizio De Lucia told Politico, "The trial showed that there is a modern mafia which has moved from extortion and narcotics to more complex forms of revenue by using fraud to get public funds intended for the development of Sicily." The mobsters fraudulently got more than €5 million in subsidies between 2010 and 2017, along with funds for thousands of hectares of said ghost farmland in the east of the island, which is either non-existent, stolen from farmers, or possessed by the Italian state or the regional government. Moreover, the sentences ranged from 2 years to 30, and among the charges that resulted in convictions were extortion, fraud against the EU. Prosecutors said the Battanesi Mafia gang, one of the oldest crime families on the island and operating in the Nebrodi Regional Park, with a hilly region popular for grazing, was said to be at the center of the fraud, which reportedly involved around 150 companies. The yearly EU agricultural subsidies of around €1,000 a hectare provide an incentive to organized crime. Also, a magistrate wrote in the investigation file that it was usually the case that one call from an organized crime boss was enough to get a farmer to give up his part of the land out of fear of any retaliation. The farmers who refused to be involved with any fraudulent practices faced having their land spoiled, their livestock killed, and their homes burned. Moreover, intercepting EU agricultural funding has now become a growing business for the Sicilian Mafia recently. Now weakened under judicial pressure and with narco-trafficking, which is now run by the most powerful Calabrian mafia, the 'Ndrangheta, Sicily's declining Cosa Nostra syndicate has been pushed back to its origins. Also, the operation, which is led by the prosecutor Maurizio De Lucia, dates back to the year 2020, when the police arrested around 94 people in dawn raids. Back then, the raids were described as one of the most significant operations focused on the Sicilian Mafia. The court trial started in March 2021 and deliberations lasted about a week. Reading the verdicts and sentences took so long that the court in Patti started to announce its decision late Monday night and was finished early the next day. Sentences ranged from 2 years to up to 30. 10 defendants were acquitted. The prosecutors reported that dozens of reputed mafia members, as well as white-collar professionals, had conspired to defraud the EU of subsidies for the use of grazing land, which include Nebrodi State Parkland in the eastern end of Sicily. In its account of the trial, the Italian daily newspaper La Repubblica stated that 150 companies fraudulently got some €5 million from the years 2010 to 2017, including for land which only existed on paper. No doubt Italy has long struggled with corruption, and this trial could raise worry about the €191.5 billion Italy is set to get as part of the EU's post-pandemic economic fund recovery. However, the successful prosecution could highlight the country's ability to crack down on crime. Then in 2020, after a 4-year investigation, about 1,000 police officers swooped on the homes of hundreds of suspected mafia members with nicknames like Blondie, Vito Corleone, and Banger. 2 gangs fought a turf war in the 1980s and 1990s, which had left more than 40 people dead. However, they later put their differences aside in their joint effort to defraud the EU. Now, bribing local officials, they identified the plots of land where EU funds had not been stated and appropriated them by threatening the landowners or by creating fake rental contracts in the names of Leeds, said De Lucia. Usually they did not bother to farm the land and then even applied for funding on land not used for farms or land they did not control, which includes a plot owned by the Catholic Church as well as another the US Navy was using to host satellite communications. The authorities suddenly became aware of the fact the mafia clans were siphoning off EU subsidies in the year 2012 when a former president of the Nebrodi region, Giuseppe Antocci, tightened background checks for those applying for funds. Then those checks are now part of national law. This crackdown put Antocci in danger, as he was the main target of an assassination attempt in the year 2016, the highest profile attack on an institutional figure since the 90s. Antocci now lives under 24-hour armed guard. However, he was at the court to hear the verdicts. This territory was known as the Land of Dead Souls because the mob so subjugated it, he told sources. The gangs were at war in the past, however in recent times they no longer needed to murder each other as money arrived from the EU. They divided the land and humiliated the people. Also, it was small farmers that paid the price. Now no one could stand up to them, or they would be set right, as they say, and use the traditional mafia methods of intimidation and extortion. He said, "More than 600 years of jail time is a very strong signal, and this territory has now been freed and could teach something to the country." According to De Lucia, the investigation and trial motivated the prosecutors in other regions as well as countries to carry out their own investigations. The former park director Giuseppe Antocci, who helped the investigators to uncover the scheme, was in the courtroom to hear the final verdict. He narrowly escaped death in the year 2016 when bullets raked his car. Investigators suspected the attack was the plan of local members of the Sicilian mafia. Antocci told sources that hearing the verdict was emotional after years of sacrifice for myself and my family. Now, among the charges that concluded in convictions were extortion along with fraud against the European Union. Prosecutors then contended that in some instances defendants used violence as well as threats to gain control of existing pastures so that they could apply for subsidies. Prosecutors stated that the elaborate fraud scheme included the heavy use of figurehead owners to get EU funds. Also, the allocated funds then moved through a difficult system of financial instruments, which include accounts abroad, before they winded up with fraudsters, prosecutors reported. To get the funds, the applicants had to certify that they had no links to organized crime, but the attestations provided were often false, investigators said. And when arguing for indictment, prosecutors alleged that complicit notaries as well as bureaucrats handling the paperwork helped Cosa Nostra gang bosses carry out the scheme. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed today's video and found it interesting, then make sure to leave us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be up to date with the most exciting content as soon as it's uploaded. Thanks for watching. See you again soon in another video.